Our top story on Weather Nation is the tropics, as we have an anticipated tropical storm or possibly hurricane making its way to Florida over the next couple of days. Presently, subtropical storm Nicole is well offshore from the Bahamas, but we're already starting to see some of the clouds, some of the initial wind moving into parts of Florida. Joining me now is Dr. Michael Brennan, Acting Deputy Director of the National Hurricane Center. Dr. Brennan, thank you so much for taking the time to discuss Nicole with us today. First off, give us a sense of what Nicole has been behaving like over the last couple hours.
Well, we're starting to see Nicole transition into more of a tropical cyclone structure, and we're seeing that shower and thunderstorm activity developing near the center. If you remember yesterday, there wasn't much shower and thunderstorm activity near the center. It was all out in these sort of outer bands, but that's changed overnight. We're starting to see the pressure fall. The peak winds are coming up. They're now near around 50 miles per hour, but Nicole still has a really large wind field with those tropical storm force winds extending out almost 400 miles from the center. So it's going to have really large scale impacts, but the development of the center core is going to set the stage for Nicole to go on and intensify, likely reaching hurricane strength before it reaches the Florida coast.
And presently, it's still a subtropical storm. What are some of the characteristics that you all are seeing that's keeping it from having that tropical status?
Well, I think it's on the way to transitioning into that tropical status. Once it starts to get that central convection and the peak winds start to increase more near the center, that's going to be the things we're looking for to sort of mark that transition to tropical structure. But I don't want people to get too hung up on that difference there. The impacts are going to be widespread with the potential for significant impacts in terms of wind and storm surge, especially near where the center of this storm makes landfall along the Florida East Coast.
And from that latest update that we've received, you are saying that the wind field is over 300 miles away from the center of that storm. What impacts is that going to have as it's approaching land?
Well, the winds are going to arrive well in advance of the center itself. You can see in our track forecast, we have the center of Nicole approaching the east coast of Florida late Wednesday night into early Thursday morning, but those tropical storm force winds are going to start to move on shore overnight tonight and Wednesday morning. And so people are going to need to finish their preparations today, especially in that hurricane watch area and those folks that are under a storm surge warning that extends all the way from North Palm Beach all the way up to Altamaha Sound. If you're going to be asked to leave your home or you need to take precautions to protect yourself, you need to get all that done today.
And even with the storm surge, you can see with your graphic there, the St. Johns River could even see some flooding inland from that surge.
Right. The St. Johns River is still elevated after the heavy rainfall from Ian, and the storm surge, the ocean water plugging up the outlet of the St. Johns River is going to help keep those water levels high, in addition to the 3 to 5 inches of rainfall that we could see, along with potentially amounts as high as 7 inches, are only going to exacerbate the water levels on places like the St. Johns River.
And an important thing you mentioned is that this is also going to impact some of the people who saw some of the impacts from Ian. What are some things to keep in mind if we're still recovering from the last storm with another one coming in?
Well, you know, if you have any sort of damaged structures, your home, any sort of debris, any sort of compromised integrity to your home or tarp on your roof, you're going to try to secure that. We have tropical storm warnings in effect all the way inland into the Orlando area where there were significant wind impacts from Ian. And we have tropical storm watches all the way from Fort Myers up through Tampa along the Florida West Coast. And that's certainly a very vulnerable area there to any type of impact. So again, people are going to want to try to prepare, make sure they have everything that might be loose, tied down, or brought inside, and be prepared to protect their home.
Dr. Michael Brennan, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll be checking back in with you later on. In the meantime, though, I want to get back more to the forecast of Nicole as we're starting to see some of the storm characteristics really starting to show a bit more organization across this area. So you can definitely see with the storm, we're getting up to 992 millibars, so the pressure is dropping with this storm now, and we're going to continue to see that development with the storm over the next several hours today and in the days to come. Taking a look at the forecast cone from the National Hurricane Center, getting up to 75-mile-per-hour winds as it's making approach to landfall. Of course, right here is the Gulf Stream between the Bahamas and the Miami-Fort Lauderdale area. The Gulf Stream is a very warm current of water. That's going to allow the storm to really feed off of that energy in the waters there, so that's going to be something to keep in mind. And then eventually we'll see impacts across the southeast coast with the heavy rain and the winds still pretty strong. Currently still under a tropical storm warning in the offshore waters there from Miami all the way up past Charleston and then inland across parts of Florida there as well. Plus, we have some hurricane watches here. Take a look at this. We have just north of the Miami Metro up to West Palm Beach, Port St. Lucie, and all the way up to the Space Coast there. We do have some areas under hurricane watches where we could see hurricane storm winds affecting this area. Of course, we have all the storm surge warnings along the coast all the way up to Brunswick. Up to 5 feet of storm surge is possible with this storm coming through. We'll likely see the initial rain from this system coming in over the next several hours as we get into Wednesday and into Thursday. We'll likely see that landfall.